true to what you said on paper.
Well, we're back. What a lively morning. Welcome back to At the Round Table with MAMLEO. We want to thank our sponsor, The Money Store. For all your mortgage needs, give branch manager Cora Holbrook a call at area code 508-345-4726. That's 508-345-4726. Good. And I'm your host, Larry Ellison, the co-host, my other brothers who equal power here. They have been showing it this morning. My brother to the right, the Rhodes Scholar, Brother Rhodes Pierre, is here. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, everyone.
On time, too, Dr. Bradley. On time. I guess
the buses were running. You want to emphasize that the buses were running on time.
The buses were running on time this morning. And to my right, my brother, who I look up to, love him. The doctor is in the house here, giving you a checkup for the neck up.
And it's not very healthy.
The diagnosis is looking good.
Looking pretty
not
poor.
according to the last hour. Over there, holding it down, keeping the phone lines going over there. Pastor Hobbs is here. Good morning, sir. How are you? You're doing a fantastic job this morning, man. I tell you, man, they're keeping you busy. You know, again, if you want to join in this conversation, the calling number here is 617-282-0685. 617-282-0685 is the number. And us in studio, we're calling it now the Counselor's Hour, the Counselor's Corner, but he is extended. It's like 60 minutes. That clock is ticking. We're going overtime with the counselor because folks have asked for it. They've requested it, so he's been generous enough with his time this morning. He's going to hang in here with us for another segment. So, folks, if you have any comments or further questions for him, 617-282-0685. Counselor Ed Flynn is here. And I think, you know, listening to you, Counselor, you represent District 2, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
And that you're talking as if you're at-large counselor because you're plugged in, you're able to address the counselor. And this is why I tell folks, when you're voting for people, do your homework so you know what you're getting, right? It's a job interview for the people that are running, and if they're selling you something, you ought to know what you're buying.
Right. There's a opportunity for residents really to figure out which candidates they support based on what their positions are on particular issues, but you can vote for someone based on popularity. You have to vote for someone name recognition.
That's a lot of it.
But you have to find out if they're willing to tackle controversial issues and provide positive leadership, or will they just be part of the status quo crowd?
Absolutely. So, Counsel, we didn't want to have you leave because, you know, there's been a lot in the media there regarding current police commissioner Michael Cox and the administration of BPD, and regarding to truthfulness. It goes back to the recent case there with the officer that was allegedly murdered in Canton, and that whole thing, Officer Devers. It's just been... That has just been a domino effect in which now there have been several lawsuits. There's been one recently where a captain on a BPD is suing the city of Boston, the police commissioner, alleging that he was asked to change documents on which an officer was to be untruthful in a report when he was in internal affairs, and he's claiming that delayed his promotion from lieutenant to captain. There's also been a lawsuit that was resolved with one of the officers that was alleged to involved in the incident in January 6th. There's been like this floodgate of matters and an untruthfulness alleging whether, you know, documents were revealed which counter with Commissioner Cox has said as to whether or not he had conversations with Officer Devers before she testified in the Canton case. It's just this cloud over the police department right now, where people have lost their willingness to be patient, but also their trust in law enforcement because of what's going on with ICE around the country. Boston, for the most part, has had a relatively good relationship, but this is not helping with trust when you're seeing all of these issues coming out, and it seems to be that, in my opinion, some type of a cover-up going on here, and the city is going to have to pay to defend all these suits against the police commissioner, because we know historically these have gone into the millions of dollars, especially when you have a situation now where the budget shortfalls that are going to be taking place. This to me would just be wasted money because it just seems like it's not good management that got us here. Your thoughts? I know it's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, the Cameron Reed case, you know, it happened outside of Boston, but what is significant to me on this case is it was a Boston police officer that was killed. We don't necessarily know how or why, but the fact that a Boston police officer it was killed and there is no investigation in terms of what role or what happened at the Boston Police Department, and did Boston Police Department, did they conduct an investigation on their own as well, just so that they know the facts of the case, because one of their own was killed. If I were the police commissioner or the mayor, I would want to know that what happened, and there was some role with the Boston Police Department as it relates to this case, but that role really hasn't been public yet. Mm-hmm. I do think there has to be questions answered by the Boston Police Department on what happened, why it happened, what their role was, how they responded, and in the interest of transparency, but also in the interest of a young police officer who lost his life. I think we owe it to that police officer and his family to do a thorough investigation of the Boston Police Department to determine what we knew and what we did about it.
Right, and that's where they always say, it seems like the cover-up is worse than the crime, because that's what people are taking away from this, is that something's being covered up. The truth is not coming out, and that is troubling. Let's
police
listen to this.
Officer accused of lying gets special treatment from the highest levels of the department. That's what a lawsuit obtained by 25 Investigates claims. Investigative reporter Ted Daniel has been working on.
Buffering, folks. I apologize. We're working in real time here.
Well, no, just to reiterate his point, it's like, okay, if I'm part of the team, if I'm on the Boston Police Department, whatever department I'm on, if you guys can have an investigative branch, something happens to me, I would expect just the common courtesy of actually getting an investigation from my own department.
Well, here's the problem, and Dr. Bradley, I want you to, because you served at that level on the command structure, is that this is why all of this that has been coming up, right, with OPAT, which is Office of Police Accountability and Transparency, it's not an independent body, right? It still reports to the mayor and the police commissioner. Unlike Post, in which I served on it, and I'm not touting it as any better, but it's impartial, where once you're appointed, you don't report to anyone. Your findings are independent, and that goes a long way without having the pressure of the politics. And it was designed to keep the politics out of it. I'm not saying that someone wouldn't pick up the phone and call you, but the police commissioner, prior to all this coming out, has had the authority, and there's been cases in which OPAT has sent for referral for officer discipline, and only one out of many that the police commissioner even took any action on. So it's like this toothless tiger, but we're paying for something that people thought was going to be a separate investigation from the Boston Police Internal Affairs, because, again, it just goes, can you police your own? And the answer here is probably no.
Well, the issue around the Cameron Reed case on Boston PD, first of all, that case was not investigated by Boston PD.
Correct.
However, there is nothing precluding or nothing preventing the commissioner from doing a concurrent side investigation because his officer was murdered. Mm-hmm. And so, and I believe, as a former commander, a member of the command staff, that the state PD, who had the lead on that investigation, would be more than happy to keep our investigators abreast of what they had found because of the fact that our officer was hurt. Now, I don't know, or killed. I don't know exactly what information or what request the BPD made of the state, but I can tell you from my experience, it's not uncommon.
No, we see, to your point, Dr. Bradley, we see joint cooperation when we're doing investigations
we do it all the time.
City lines, right? So it's not, you're right, it's not uncommon.
Yeah.
But I think what was uncommon, according to what's been reported and what documents have been revealed, is that the commissioner did have a conversation with Officer Devers, who was a former Canton that came over to BPD, who was in the station there that night when this happened, that prior to her testimony, now that was inappropriate if that took place, and it looks like it did, where he brings her up to have a conversation with her, which she testified under oath that she had this conversation with Police Commissioner Cox. She didn't go into the details about it, but she's a witness in the case. We all know as law enforcement, and he's the top here in the city, you don't talk to witnesses.
Well, first of all, if I were the commissioner, that particular meeting would have never happened.
That's what I'm talking.
All right, but then again,
even if the intentions were good, right?
and in fairness to Mike, if he said what she said, he said was do the right thing. My question would be, what does that mean?
And that's why the conversation should not happen.
What
right?
does that mean? Because it shouldn't. But if the conversation didn't happen, there would be no room for interpretation.
There
Why?
you
Because
go.
it never happened. Right? You know what I mean?
But it's not exactly clear, according to Officer Dever, that she met with the police commissioner.
Yeah.
But then it's not clear that the commissioner acknowledges meeting with Officer Dever. So that's it. So the truth is in there somewhere, but the public doesn't know it.
Well, here's where because you were former probation officer, Dr. Bradley and I are former law enforcement, so I think we're putting those hats on. Here's why I give more credibility to Officer Devers that the conversation took place. I have no knowledge that it did, because this was such a high-profile case. She testified under oath that she had this conversation with the police commissioner Cox. That means that, because people are asking why wasn't she charged with perjury. So what that says to me is that the Norfolk County DA's office looked into it, and clearly, if she had testified and it didn't take place, that she would have been charged with perjury, because she said under oath. Commissioner Cox denied it in front of a microphone from the media, which carries no legal consequence. She has legal jeopardy, so I give more weight to her telling the truth than I do the commissioner, and in the documents that came out where she's on his calendar for that day, right, that just backs up her. And I mean, what would be the benefit of her throwing that out there? And then if she's claiming that, now this is where I said where you need a separate and independent body investigating, because the superintendent at the time of Internal Affairs is now the number 2 person in the Boston Police Department. He's the number 2 guy, Phil Owens. That no one would think that it would be appropriate. You have an officer saying that the commissioner met with them, and he's saying that they didn't, that no one took any action to find out whether or not this is true or not, because the standard for untruthfulness is termination. And we're terminating officers for that, under that policy, and now we have it out there in the atmosphere. We need to find out whether or not the commissioner can continue to discipline people in this way if he's not being honest himself. I think that's important, but I haven't heard anything from the mayor. I'm just wondering, is this something that the council would look into? Because it's really all of these lawsuits and everything, it's hurting the credibility of the police department.
Yeah. So the question, would the council look into this? I think the council should look into this. Do I think the council will look into this? I don't think they will. I don't think they want to get involved in controversial issues.
Which is their job.
But I do know, when I was on the council years ago, Andrea Campbell was the chair of the Committee on Public Safety. This is an issue that she would be
on top of.
She would be all over, and should be asking questions, and should be getting people in and talking to them on the record. What happened? Why?
Would she have the authority right now as the Attorney General?
Oh, I think as the Attorney General she would. Yeah. But the City Council has the authority to do these types of, and not necessarily, I won't use the word investigations, but a conversation with the police commissioner, with police senior leadership, but they choose not to do that because they don't want the pushback from the administration. They don't want the pushback from their colleagues on the city council. It's easier just to do nothing.
Right.
When you do nothing, you don't get in trouble. When you do something, then you have a target on your back.
Well, here's the do nothing problem. Now, Dr. Brad, let's say we were both still employed at the city of Boston, and someone came in and lodged a complaint that Dr. Brad and I were untruthful. I'd say, hey, I'm following the same standard. Why are you investigating me and you didn't investigate the accusation against the commissioner? And he's yet going to hand down discipline against me? So now you're giving every employee, not just sworn, but civilian as well, a defense that don't come after me if you're not going to come after...
I'd take it farther. I would say that it's a jeopardy. It put every prosecutorial effort that the officer makes in jeopardy, because truthfulness is a critical part of the prosecution case. The officer being truthful is a critical part of the prosecution case. So if I'm, as an attorney, can actually put a doubt in the mind of the people who are reading this, that, hey, listen, untruthfulness is plentiful.
It starts at the top. It starts at the top.
It starts at the top. Now it becomes a problem with every officer doing his or her job to prosecute. That's what I know.
No,
that's how I see it.
And you're right, Dr. Bradley, because we know that there's a lot of weight and deference given to police officers when they testify that they're telling the truth against someone who is saying that it didn't happen. And if that is eroded, and that it's always going to be now where people are going to say, hey, wait a minute. Here's documents here that shows that the police commissioners, how do I know that these other officers aren't as, they're not lying or untruthful as their police commissioner? And,
but that's if the police commissioner is untruthful, because when you start thinking about it, when I'm looking at it, I don't know, I wasn't there, but if he's saying, well, the conversation didn't happen, but his ledger is saying, well, the meeting happened. Well, okay, the meeting happened. What happened in that meeting?
But let's add on to that. Not just that the meeting happened, but this person said under oath that it happened, and there were no charges against her, right, for perjuring herself. That, to me, then someone should be looking into it.
I got it.
And that's the part where this council said the city council isn't looking into it, the OPAT isn't looking into it, right? And because the police commissioner, this is where it gets tricky for a post, is the police commissioner is the only top law enforcement in the Commonwealth that is not a police officer. Yeah. So he's a civilian, so he doesn't fall in the post jurisdiction.
But Larry, let's give her, using your logic, that it did happen. Let's say, okay, the meeting did happen, and in the meeting, the police commissioner said, "Do the right thing." What does that mean? Does it mean tell the truth? Does it mean tell a lie? Do the right, what I mean? It could mean either one of them. You know what I mean?
From my experience living in Boston, I've heard that saying
all the time.
Many times.
Yeah.
It can mean be very honest, or it can mean protect the institution.
Yes, exactly. So what does it mean?
It means,
This is why the meeting should not have taken place, because, again, we have two different interpretations of do the right thing, right? Or we could go with Spike Lee, right? Put more brothers on the wall. Right? So,
okay.
I just say, because it's open for interpretation. This is why historically, commissioners and folks like that don't think that's a good idea, especially when it's someone that is scheduled to testify in the trial.
Well, Larry, let me ask you a question. Why wouldn't the chief of staff for the police commissioner, why would she put that on the schedule, or why would the deputy, the superintendent in chief, he would see it on the schedule too? Why wouldn't they go to the commissioner and say, this shouldn't be on the schedule?
Yeah. Well, again, this goes
back to
this. But see, this is what I'm saying. Sometimes, you know what? It's better not to just have all your friends around you. The people who will give you the honest assessment of this is not the right thing to do. And maybe they do, and you still, but if you dispute it or you push back then you own it. But no one's going to say to the police commissioner, oh, yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. Well, most people, Dr. Bradley would have, I would have, but that doesn't seem the people to be around him, because honestly, his chief of staff is someone who I have no confidence in, Nicole Tabb, who was doing these same things when she was the legal counsel for the department under former Commissioner Ed Davis. This is what happens when you recycle. I know Boston likes recycling, but sometimes it's just not good. It's already outlived its usefulness. So I don't think there was any room, and now everyone's getting caught up in this. And even if what they're saying is the truth, it's like it's all suspect now, because it didn't come out. Well, you're just making that up now. It's like the Epstein files, right? This should have come out. They're not getting out in front of this, and the commissioner's only response now is, "I don't want to talk about that. It's too late. That train has left the station. People now want to know, and it's not going away."
you would have to ask yourself, and or if you cared about the issue, should there be an independent investigation to determine what happened at the Boston Police Department during this case in leading up to the present time, and who would conduct that type of investigation? It's probably warranted in the interest of credibility, in keeping credibility for the Boston police. But if you lose that credibility, it's tough to get it back, and you have to get and you need to get that credibility back by being transparent, by being open, by asking difficult questions. And if you don't have that, you'll have a declining police department.
I'd like to ask a question. What happened to Eddie Crispin's position there? Because I thought it was independent, and then when Cox came in, for some reason, he lost that position or was forced out of that position.
Yeah.
And they went through years of vetting to get into that process, and then
let me just say this before the council answers that. That's a very good point you bring up, because the reason why the commissioner initially, and this is where he said, to truthfulness, he said, for what Rhodes is speaking of, is that when I stepped down as commissioner on the post, MAMLEO has a permanent seat. Eddie Crispin was designated to replace me in that position. The commissioner said there was a conflict of interest because Eddie Crispin served on his command staff. That was vetted out, and even the attorney general said that there was no truth to that. And then they said, well, now there are other things that you don't know about. Well, if there were other things, why didn't you make that the staple
what happened
instead
to
of what you did?
transparency?
Again, now we're coming back. See, all these things are now coming back and saying, well, wait a minute. So you really weren't being truthful about Eddie Crispin's matter. But here's the thing. Eddie Crispin was doing the admirable thing. He could have served in that capacity. You had someone there who had some integrity and some trust serving on the post. Eddie said, you know what, this is an admirable thing. He stepped down. He gave up his position as deputy superintendent to do the right thing and serve on the post. And now, right? He's not going through all this controversy. It's the department and continuing with this behavior that they're not accountable.
Yeah, Eddie Crispin wasn't treated with respect that he earned. There was no conflict. He has a lot of credibility in the community, and I spoke out against demoting him, but he wasn't treated with respect. And what happened to Eddie Crispin is an example. If you don't speak up, it'll happen to the next guy after that.
But I think before we grab this call, this goes back to Dr. Bradley's, right, when he was talking about, right, having someone in the room. I think he said, why didn't his chief of staff or the number 2 guy say that this is not a good idea? Eddie Crispin would have said that, but there were no Eddie Crispins around, and the message is clear. When I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the round table.
Good morning. Yeah, I have a question again for the counselor.
Yep.
Matter of fact, this is a question for all y'all. And my question is, with the current police commissioner, Michael Cox, is he the mayor's puppeter?
I'm not sure. I wouldn't phrase it. I think we know that the commissioner is not independent. You're appointed by the mayor, but you're still the top law enforcement. And this is where you know the lines get blurred a little. Is that, you know what? I would rather fall on the sword in the sense that I'm going to always get the right, because guess what? When these things happen, you become a casualty. Dr. Bradley, you know, right? Is that if Cox becomes too much of a liability, if this had happened prior to the mayor getting elected and there had been a real race, Cox would already be gone, because he'd be too much. This conversation, she would not want to be carrying this into the election. She would have gotten this. So when you're appointed by them, you can be unappointed by the mayor. And I think this here is not, it's like the Epstein file, in my opinion. It's not going away. Every day, this story just became, every day, there's something coming up, and there's a new lawsuit. Since there's, I don't know, Dr. But there's been 5 different lawsuits filed in different matters.
To answer his question, though, I don't think this is Michael, in my opinion.
In which way?
I think it's Ed Davis.
No.
I think Ed Davis is running the show here. I think when
Do you think he's advising?
I think Ed Davis is the one who's actually, he's the martinet. He's the individual who's behind the scene doing manipulating the puppet. In my opinion, you know, because I see Michael entirely different. I know this kid. I don't know him as well as you do, but you know, he strikes me as being a fair person. That's why I asked the question: what does do the right thing mean? He strikes me as that kind of individual. However, I think that if Ed Davis played a very big role in getting him here to kind of touch on the issue around having a black police commissioner in succession, I think that Ed is actually advising the mayor, who's now telling Mike,
then
this is what I want to happen.
Right, but then there's a problem. That's what I'm saying. There's no independence, and now you are going to take the blame for that. So, Dick, I don't know if he is. I mean, he's appointed by the mayor, so yes, there is some. But I mean, this is not a policy issue. This is really something where a death has been lost, but this is also people are saying that their careers were stalled because of this. And this is going to cost the taxpayers, not Commissioner Cox, even though he's named in these lawsuits and the mayor. The taxpayers are going to foot the bill for this. And Council, over the years, MAMLEO has sued the city council, sued the city. And there's been the drug hair test, promotions. This is not an inexpensive expenditure for taxpayers, because it's not the city council, it's not the city paying, it's the taxpayers who are paying out millions of dollars in these lawsuits.
And then how does the city of Boston get the money to pay this? You have to increase property taxes.
There you go.
You have to or increase taxes or increase revenue.
Well, thank you, Dicko. Appreciate it. We're going to grab this other call. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the round table.
Hey, good morning, Larry. Good morning, Willie.
Good morning, Helen. How are
Good morning, Will. Good morning, Councilor Flynn.
Good morning. Good morning.
You had a comment or question?
Oh, yeah. I wanted to add it. Well, I wanted to actually applaud you all for making some good points with regards to how, hey, especially like Councilor Flynn just put it, and when you do nothing, you're not in trouble. When you do something, when you do the right thing, you have people coming after you, right? Not just with City Council. It's also the same at the Boston Police Department. And Larry and Willie, you all know what I'm talking about, right? Because you look at it where you have Wu, who likes to keep bringing in, seems like Menino's favorite cover-up artist there, right? Between Cox, Taub, and then Elevated Owens, one of Menino's former drivers. And then you look at it where from internal affairs to Ann Arbor to his wife's stuff, right? When Wu brought back Cox, and then you had the acting chief at Ann Arbor who told me personally her time under Cox was the worst time of her life, and he has a long history of covering up for corrupt cops and public officials, and at least as far back as being Davis's lackey when he was chief of internal affairs to those scandals at Ann Arbor. It's apparently even in Michigan outside Ann Arbor, when he was chief at Ann Arbor, apparently covering up for and trying to have state police officers cover for his wife's criminal motor vehicle infractions. And then particularly you have current and former Boston police officers like myself who've spoken out against cronies of his, and Wu's, who are usually Menino cronies, and will have our rights infringed or our livelihood and our families attacked.
Right.
And you talk about the Epstein files, we know that there's been plenty of whispers of rings of sex offenders within the Boston Police Department that get protected day in and day out. Well, we've had some, you got whole Pat Rose Sr. there that came on the news, but there's always been whispers.
Right.
There's been whispers of even when it comes to Blue on Blue,
right.
Attacks, sexual assaulted,
so let me
I was there.
Right. Let me interrupt you, Helen, because I think this is a very good point you're bringing up. Quite point that this seems to be something that she's alluding to is that this is something that has been going on. It's a climate that is accepted, in some cases embraced, in some cases protected. And then it begs the question again, like you said, that former city councilor Andrea Campbell would have probably looked into it. I know you're right. She did look at some. That why would not the council, whether it be the president or the chair of public safety, saying, Houston, we have a problem. Boston, we have a problem here. We need to make some changes. I know the mayor in the contract, she wanted to make some changes, allowing her, and that's why I thought that was dangerous, her being the appointing authority to decide whether or not a police officer's conduct is not appropriate. But again, if she's not investigating it, and if there's no independent investigation, then we feel, it'll be arbitrarily independent. Dr. Brawley, I know, as former president of MAMLEO.
More opportunity for cover-up.
Right.
It's more opportunity for her to do the same thing that this captain is saying in this lawsuit, that Cox is telling Owens to do, which for all we know, it could be Wu telling Cox to tell Owens to do.
Right.
We don't know where it stops. It could just be right coming from Wu.
Right.
I mean, the best thing we can do is we had it before, remember, Larry?
Right. That's
there was
what
a
I'm
public
saying.
hearing on cover-up and corruption at the Boston Police Department. We had it once before. We could do it again, and I'm sure there are plenty of people that will want to show up and have their voices heard before the city council.
Let's Dr. Bradley.
No, I can sense the urgency in her voice, when she speaks, but she's absolutely on target. The issue here is that we have to have transparency. If we don't have transparency, then we
don't have credibility.
We don't have credibility. But you also have these theories. You also have these theories going all over the place. To rein it in, if I were the commissioner, this is what happened. This is what I'm going to do about it, and I will encourage an independent investigation to get down to it, because truthfulness is critical to police work.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah, if we can pay all these attorneys outside to do these investigations, exactly. Why can't we get an investigation going? City council can. Let me ask this question then.
Do you think that Commissioner Cox, based on everything that's out there in the atmosphere and all of this, can he still have credibility? Can he stay in his current position with all of this? Because again, like I said, if I was still a police officer and someone accused me of untruthfulness, I'd be saying, I'm just doing what the commission. I mean, who looked into his matter? Why are you looking into mine?
Too many conspiracy theories out there, Larry.
Well,
too many.
I would also say it's called institutional malaise, or in the sense of if we could even compare the hierarchy of investigating the church for the sex scandals and all the cover-ups that kept happening because of being institutionalized and being there for years, so you don't know what's going on for real.
I think this goes to Council one of your prior appearances when you came in and you talked about the fact that there is really no learning curve, no training for counselors, that people don't understand that these important issues come up and people aren't versed in dealing with them, so they just do nothing. Or they're there because the mayor's support and they don't want to lose that. Like we look at on the national level with Republicans, I don't want to do the right thing because the right thing means that they're coming after me. Mm-hmm. I lose my seat. Then what do we really have here?
Well, that's the difference between an elected official that's independent and not independent. When you're not independent from the administration, you can't discuss these issues. You can't research these issues or investigate them. What's happening in the police? What's happening in the public school system? Because your job, you got your job because of the city administration. You can't then go around and say, "Hey, look, I'm going to start asking difficult questions after you just got me elected." You can't do that. But that's the problem with having a city council that's not independent. They will not challenge the administration. They will not hold difficult, controversial hearings. I've filed hearings on difficult, controversial issues, and the chair of the various committees won't hold a hearing because they don't want any scrutiny. I believe.
Aren't they accountable to the voters?
They voted.
You sent me the statistics. Do you think the voters are plugged in and engaged? That's the problem. Yeah. It's not just the council. That's the problem. That's the problem.
I want to see a complete review investigation of city ARPA money. That's the federal money we received from the federal government during COVID.
Oh man,
where it went, how it was spent, tracking all of this information. And it's very difficult to get a hearing scheduled.
Why is that difficult? Because that's taxpayer money. Why is that difficult? Why? Oh, let me ask you a question. I guess a better question. Can an outside agency or authority? I know, like even at the state level, the state auditor has tried. It passed through the voters to audit the state our elected officials at the state level, and they all don't want the people looking into what they've been doing with this money, but they're elected officials. It's just like, when I file my taxes or I don't pay, they can look into anything with me as a citizen. These people are voted and they put in these laws to try to shield themselves from accountability. So I'm asking, my question again is there any independent agency, the AG's office, that's someone that could request an audit of these public funds?
Yeah, they do put some of this information out on the internet, but what I like doing is getting the information and then asking the follow-up questions, and then getting the answer, then asking the follow-up question. And the information that you have is only a fraction of what is needed. You need to have a thorough conversation with the decision makers on how the money was spent. Was it spent appropriately? Was it given to anyone with any political connections? Those are the questions you ask. But because committee chairs won't hold those types of hearings, it hurts the public, and it's public taxpayer dollars.
So there is no transparency. I feel like this is a microcosm of what's going on nationally as well. Because you mentioned a very important point: the fact that you said the city councilors, when they get elected, they receive no training whatsoever as to what their job is. And so I feel like that.
And you also have to wonder a little bit about voter fraud, too, because you go to any Chinese wedding or funeral, it becomes a game of secret Hitler of who voted for who. Because no one, or at least no one at, opting being part of that, and you have less than 20% of registered voters even casting a vote for Wu. And then you look at even campaign financing. How did they attribute almost $500,000 of donations to Wu's campaign came from unemployed people? Unemployed people, quote, unemployed people were her largest donor base, donating nearly $500,000 from all over the country, not from just the city of Boston, but from all over the country as far as Puerto Rico, Texas, California, funding a city of Boston, city mayor election.
The city council needs to contract Helen to come in and open it, because she knows where the bodies are buried.
Independent investigation.
She knows where the bodies are buried. And you're right, Council. When this whole started, what they would just, and they're starting to look into it a little bit now, but it's kind of got off track with the Orange Man. But they were looking into where this money had been spent, because it was just being thrown out there, and people like, oh, nobody's paying attention to what I'm doing with this money, thinking not long term that at some point people might. But I want to get back to Rhodes' point as well, is that you have said it since the last time you were on a few times ago. Is there anything in place or required for the newly elected, any type of training or education so that they have an understanding of the scope,
Basics,
of the magnitude of what they're about to embark on?
Nothing formally. There's no formal education or training. There's informal conversations they have with city councilors and city department heads of getting a rundown from what that department head is doing. But there should be a strict, 3 or 4 day workshop where you're learning everything about the city council. And one thing the city councilors often get caught up on, and it would benefit them, is campaign finance, in what to do, what not to do. Because if you don't follow the rules of campaign finance, you'll find yourself in trouble quickly.
Right.
Who's the last one that just got kicked out because of that?
Anderson?
No, I'm right.
Yeah, and it also has to make you wonder, with Wu's money coming from all over the country, and almost $500,000 in her campaign coffers coming from the unemployed. It has to make you wonder where her loyalties lie and where these decisions are coming from. Because you got to look, and also looking at it too, it's not conspiracy theories. It's like you need to have lawyers from out of state to get documents, actual documents to prove lies that are happening, cover up that's happening. I have actual documents to prove that cover up is happening. There's no conspiracy theories. There's actual documents and evidence out there. They just are keen on covering it up.
I'm gonna let him go.
Yeah, and one person I do want to mention that has done some good work on this is Councilor Mejia. She is the chair of the City Council Transparency Accountability Commission, and she has been asking questions about many of these city issues. And in my opinion, she has done a good job of doing that. However, there is some talk that committee could be abolished.
Actually, before it gets abolished, is there any way you can extend an invitation for her to us to come here and talk about it?
Yeah, I'll reach out to us.
Okay.
Also, what is the every time I ask it, if you know the FYI budget for 2026 for City of Boston? The total.
For this year?
Coming year.
I don't have that figure right now.
So say what, $6-7 billion? Is it
yeah,
in that neighborhood, right? I'd say that because if you had a company and you were going to hire people and say, hey, here's a $7 billion budget. I want you to run my company into the ground, right?
Yeah.
Who would throw more money at such incompetency? And I'm not talking about you because there's few.
Yeah.
But I'm saying is without
The people
vetting,
that don't vote.
would say that this is okay, that we're going to continue to have you serve in that capacity with really no oversight with a budget of that magnitude.
Right.
If you just look at the school budget alone, we're entrusting almost $2 billion.
Almost $2
the
billion.
largest chunk of the budget is for the schools, and all these years it just keeps going up and no accountability. I don't understand.
Yeah, and how we ranked at 1 and 2 when we're throwing $2 billion at the public schools. We have the oldest public school system in the country.
We're shuttering
We had a
doors.
lot of time to get it right.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be scoring in the 1s and 2s across the country.
Right.
Well,
We're throwing $2 billion at it.
as our enrollment is down at BPS, our transportation budget is up significantly. I think it might be 190 or 200 million.
Yeah.
And we're transporting fewer and fewer students.
I said it would be cheaper to buy all these parents a car every 4 years, right, than what we spend on buses for all. Because
You're definitely increasing your enrollment if you do that.
That's true. But to also,
Have we looked into what is contributing factors to decreasing enrollment? Like
well, we
what's
know
causing
that
it?
if you can't read, there's no sense in going there. But also, does that include, if you know, the amount that we spend to reimburse the state for because kids from 7 to 12, unless they have some issues, issued a T-Pass. So that $200 million is just for the buses. That doesn't include what we spend out reimbursing the state for the passes that we have to give to the high schoolers. Actually,
Yeah. A lot of the high schoolers don't take the bus to school.
they don't get a bus.
And a good percentage of the transportation budget is for students with disabilities, and that also includes hiring obviously the bus driver, but also the monitor. For every student with disabilities, there should be a monitor in that particular bus as well.
Right. Helen, thank you.
Oh, and I want to
Okay.
make a clarification that the 1s and 2s are scoring a 1 or a 2 out of a scale of 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. There's no reason at all whatsoever that the Boston Public Schools should be scoring at a 1, bottom 1 or bottom 2 out of a scale of 10.
Thank
in
you.
the country.
Thank you, Helen. We appreciate it. Council, we know we've kept you way past the time that you were supposed to be here. Anything you want to say
Have a
before
great day.
thank you before we let you go? Because you've been gracious of your time this morning, and clearly people have had an appetite to engage in this way. And maybe, I know, you might tell some of all the counselors, the ones who have been there, the ones coming in, there's this radio show on Saturday mornings that they might want to go and listen to the people.
Well, I believe.
Come on up so they can hear you.
Well, I believe Winston, Mr. Pierre, had said that he was interested in coming in, so we'll extend that.
Did he win his
invitation.
seat?
Yeah, I believe so. And then definitely Mrs.
Well,
Mejia.
Santana had a spot. He didn't even show up. He didn't even call to say he wasn't coming. So I said something about.
But on these programs, I love the programs. I love listening to the audience. I love listening to you guys. But you do, in my opinion, pay a price with the city administration when you go on these programs, because you're talking for an hour and a half. You're talking for 2 hours,
right.
and
Not a soundbite.
yeah, and you're going to get someone angry at you for your comments. But you know something? Your constituents elected you to speak on issues, to communicate, and to deal with issues, to listen to constituents, and to try to solve problems. They didn't elect you to
run, hide.
Yeah, to watch TV all day.
Right.
It's easy to watch TV all day watching a sports game. I'd love to do that. but that's not your job.
No, but I think your constituents overwhelmingly, I wouldn't even consider you had a challenger, but they clearly were happy with the work that you're doing, and this is just an example of it. Because the calls, it wasn't this was not staged. The people were calling in. You're engaging with them in a meaningful way. You're being truthful and honest with them, and you're talking about issues that you represent District 2. You're not an at-large counselor, so you don't even have the whole city, but your knowledge of the city is helpful to people, and they're probably saying, why can't I get these answers from the people I elected? Well, look who you elected, and we have one new person coming into the council of this year, and that's because it only seems like whenever there's a vacancy, that there's any competition for that, even
Right.
at the mayor's race. Unless somebody dies or retires, they said, I told them we should have, they said we had a no King's Day, we should have a no Queen's Day.
I do know that Reverend Culpepper, the new incoming city councilor, I think he's going to do a good job.
He has a background.
He has a
He's an
background.
attorney. He worked in housing at Hub. He's a pastor.
Yep. He's an older gentleman. He has had a career, and he's not going to be overly impressed with with the job. I think he's just going to do the job and do the best he can, and not get involved in the drama.
Let me ask you, because I know you and Council Murphy and a few others have been attacked for speaking truth in the council, right? And not that we've had to defend you, but I said, look, I believe what they're saying. It's not like they're, when they're saying that the kids in the school are, like when they were talking about them taking over South Bay and you guys were very vocal. Well, look, now they're taking over Copley Mall. So this is problem because we're not getting out in front of it. We're putting the blinders on. We're empowering kids. We had some reforms in the state, but we didn't reform the behavior, and we've put nothing in place to address it, so it continues. So I applaud folks like yourself for willing to, like I said, to come on this show and listen to our audience and listen to us and say, yes, we have Boston, we have a problem. We're not blaming you. You said, well, I'm not blaming the superintendent where the kids can't read, but if we're doing nothing to change that, maybe we need to reevaluate if what we're doing is working.
Right. No, thank you, Larry, and to everybody here for giving me the opportunity. I enjoy coming on, and we'll stay in
grab
contact.
this last call?
Sure.
All right,
sure.
caller, good morning, because it's probably for you. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the round table.
Yeah, peace. This is Jamal calling in. How's everybody doing?
Where you been, man? We thought you were preparing breakfast.
I was trying to let everybody else get it in, but one thing did not come up, and since the counselor just mentioned it, there was talk before about, now that we do have a clear election, a winner for District 7, will Minyard Culpepper now get seated early, or will we have to wait till January?
That's a good question.
I think the Reverend should be get into his job immediately. I do know that, I don't know if that's the case, because I think it has to be approved up at the State House to let him sit early. But the district has been without a city council for a long period of time. I think that's a problem. I would allow the Reverend to take his position immediately so he can start the job. He wants to start the job. He was in City Hall yesterday. I met with him, and he's off to a good start. I think he's going to be an excellent leader for the city, for the district. But I don't think he's going to be able to sit early, to be honest with you.
Wow.
Okay. And just FYI for everybody in the listening audience, too, also today is the release date for former Councilor Anderson. So, I hope she's doing well and, puts her life back on track and, all that type of stuff. And District 7 now with Culpepper, we can move forward.
Yeah. No, that's actually all we ask. Like I said, and I always say voting has consequences, good, bad, or indifferent, right?
Amen.
And we're seeing the effects of that, not just here, but nationally, right? So hopefully this is a wake-up call because, Council, there's a lot of problems in front of people. There's a lot of cuts. This is what I'm saying. People don't understand where the city doesn't have unlimited money. And with these cuts coming from the federal government to food and SNAP, there's going to be more of a burden. Housing vouchers, there's going to be a bigger burden people are expecting the city to fill in that gap. And it's just not enough money to take from people because at some point people don't have any more to give.
I think this year's budget is going to be entirely different from last year. I don't think we can continue with the spending on various city programs and departments. I think there has to be some cuts to various city departments. Unfortunately, it just can't continue.
No, it's not. We're going to give you the final words before we're almost out of time anyways, but anything you wanted to say, or I know you started.
Yeah, thank you, Larry, and to the gentleman here, and to MAMLEO, and to the neighbors and the residents that are listening. I want to wish everybody a happy and healthy Thanksgiving, to you and your family. as well as Christmas season as well, and looking forward maybe in January to getting back on and talking to you guys again. But thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to represent the residents in the Boston City Council as well.
Well, thank you for kicking out the counselor's hour. We appreciate you coming. No, and like I said, I can't emphasize the folks that, I did not reach out to the counselor this time. He reached out and says, hey, you know what, can I come on? You guys have any time? I'm like, sure. Just ironically, we had some time this week, and I think it was very productive time spent, after the election. And I know a lot of people listen, they don't call in, so if some of our elected officials, I know they listen, they monitor, they're trolling us. We're okay, we don't bite. And if you make an appointment to come, show up, or at least have the decency to call and say you're not coming. I don't think it's a council. Pastor Hobbs, you have some comments?
Yeah, and I just wanted to thank the counselor as well. He came on Healing Our Lands broadcast to be interviewed. He also was willing to come behind the wall. We offered that to every candidate that was running for. Some didn't take up the opportunity to come on the air. Some were not interested in going behind the wall. Unfortunately, the administration put a pause on him coming behind the wall. He actually went through the process of being cleared. We had it all set up, and they put the brakes on it and said, no incumbents or candidates at this particular time, and we can revisit that maybe a little bit later on. And so I want to thank you for being willing to. And we talked today, and he says he's still willing to. So we're going to continue to have a conversation with the administration to engage our elected officials with those who are behind the wall.
Yeah, no, I don't think being a politician means that you just go where, as you said, alluded to, you may get some blowback for coming on shows like this, but I think you also get some respect for coming into what people might quote unquote the lion's den, because no one's here throwing the punch, right? I don't think no one's been disrespectful.
Nope.
I think they're asking questions and honest about they're paying their taxes. They have a right to have their voice heard, whether you want to hear it or not. If you don't run for office.
Right. You can't pick and choose what issues you want to work on. You work on the issues that are in front of you. You communicate with the people that are your constituents in the residents of the city. Each person has the right to talk to an elected official, and the elected official should respond to them in a respectful and appropriate manner. But the residents of Boston deserve the right to talk directly to their elected official.
No, just imagine if Dr. Bradley and I, during our career, that we've gone to the Joneses' house 15 times, and the dispatcher called and said, they're acting up again. I'm like, you know what? I don't feel like dealing with them today.
Why go?
Right?
You don't have that luxury.
Yeah, no, we don't.
Yeah.
We didn't have it.
And elected officials, if you take the job, that comes with the job, is what I'm saying. Making the analogy is that you don't have the right to. If you don't, then quit. Then quit. That's all I'm saying. Quit. Don't think, you're bothering me, or so I'm inconveniencing you. That's your job.
That's your job. And part of the job, Larry, is showing up. Yeah. You have to go to City Hall every day for at least 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, and you go into the community at nighttime. But you have to be in City Hall, listening to people, learning about city government, talking to department heads, talking to constituents. But you can't run your office from your basement.
Oh, you can't.
You can't do it.
You can't. Jamal, final word from you. We got about 30 seconds for you.
That's it. Okay. I'm just looking forward to seeing what the council does in this new year when everybody gets signed in, and I hope folks get back to work.
Well, thank you for always keeping folks informed and also keeping folks accountable, including us. We appreciate that. We don't run from. We don't always agree, but we can have a civilized conversation. Appreciate you, brother.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Jamal.
Thank you. Peace.
Dr. Bradley, any final comments from you?
I'm good, brother. I'm just amazed by this budget.
Brother Rhodes, the buses are running on schedule. We'll be here on time.
Absolutely.
You've been listening to At the Roundtable. I want to thank Councilor Flynn for graciously giving us his morning this morning with us. I think he saw the benefit of it, and I know our listening audience got the benefits of having you here with us today. Pastor Hobbs, thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Dr. Bradley?
$1.7 billion. But be blessed. I can't believe it. I can't believe it, man.
That's a lot of money.
This is for the dreamers. They say I am a dreamer. 'cause I still believe that anything is possible as long as you work hard. Hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle so if I never see ya, never get the chance to meet ya, no, I came up from the bottom, always rooting for the underdog.
I wrote 300 songs in 1 year, Boogie will tell you I'm on it. I got unreleased songs for days, they don't want it. Eat any MC in the game, it ain't a challenge. If your music reflects who you are, then you's a coward. I can see through the lies, you ain't living what you spitting. If your money's so long, why your dog's in prison? Why your baby mom's stripping, why your mom's still living in that same broken home that you used to sell piffin'. You ain't gotta lie to me to sell me a track. You ain't gotta rock fake jewels or walk around strap. I respect artists getting money, but love them for spitting crack. And the fact that one track can move a family out the trap. It's a dream for us lost souls brought up in the mix. I'm motivated by the artists coming out in my midst. And the artists that paved the way when I didn't exist. Music's a skyscraper, I'm just trying to add a couple bricks.
This is for the dreamers. They say I am a dreamer, 'cause I still believe that anything is possible as long as you work hard. Hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle so if I never see ya, never get the chance to meet ya, no, I came up from the bottom, always rooting for the underdog.